The roast presented by Cabin Coffee in a special episode today. This will be a lot of fun. I'm Scott with Eau Claire Hometown Media, and a chance for us to meet one of the proprietors of Cabin Coffee. You're going to be hearing a lot from Kelly and Joe throughout the course of this series, and a chance to meet a lot of interesting people and learn about organizations in town. But each of them has their own intriguing story, and today we're going to dive a little bit more into Joe. And Joe, I know sometimes you don't like to talk, but we're going to get a lot out of you today, aren't we?
I believe we are, yes. You have me here, and I'm not going anywhere, so let's answer the questions.
And by the way, Kelly will be back with our next episode, and that'll be a lot of fun having her return. Speaking of which, you guys run this business. In one of our first episodes, I encourage people to go back and listen. There was $1 million loan, for heaven's sakes. Learn all about that and how you guys got this business up and running. It's a great entrepreneurial story. But what is it like to run a business with your spouse? We hear a lot of people get into partnerships and what have you. You guys see each other at the house. You guys see each other here. There's no escape.
I agree. And then you throw my daughter in the mix. So, and she worked here since she was 13 and just recently went out to college. So it does make life a little interesting in a good way. It shows that we're all in and that everything is, this is our first business. We never owned a business before. I never did. Kelly has been in the business world her entire adult life, and she has her degree in business. But this is so far from my wheelhouse, that I can't even begin to describe it for you. So, there's been a lot of trials and tribulations in that aspect. I've been able to rely on her because she has been doing this for so long. We may not always agree on the way it should go, but ultimately my wife wins, and that's what we do. So.
Who brought up the idea first? Who sat around the kitchen table and said, let's start up a business first? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm married myself. I know a lot of people that are married. They always joke around and they go, "Oh, we should open up a business together." Then you look each other in the eyes and you go, No, we're not that. We're not gonna do that. So who brought up the idea first, and maybe how long did it take for you guys to say, you know what, we're not joking to each other. Let's dive in. Let's explore this.
So it wasn't really let's sit down and have a question. I was working as a medical examiner in Eau Claire County, and I got home from a call or rounds, and my wife went to a planning development meeting in River Prairie, and she kind of, as she was sitting in the presentation, she couldn't believe that there wasn't a coffee shop or where it was going to be, because they went through and said, this is going to be here, this is going to be here, and my wife, with that ever-evolving business mind, goes, I wonder where the coffee shop's going to be. So afterwards, she went over and introduced herself to Mike Golot and said, hey, where's the coffee shop going to be? And he's like, I can't believe that nobody's jumped on that yet and put it in there. And my wife said, I'm going to put a coffee shop in River Prairie. And he kind of laughed at her a little bit. And my wife, if you know her, is very driven woman, and said, no, I'm available next week on Wednesday or whatever it was. What's your availability? And that was the meeting. So she comes home and she's like, hey, guess what? I'm like, what? She's like, we're going to put a coffee shop in River Prairie. And I said, oh, that's amazing, because I'm going to put a brewery in River Prairie and we can be neighbors. So it wasn't like this discussion where we had this is the way we're going to do it. Again, we had no idea really about it as to how we were going to do this, because this is our first time opening a business or running a business. And the backstory is my wife moved away from what she was doing previously to follow me. This is before we were married. So, and I was in law enforcement here. And so she relocated, and a lot of commitment and time. It was a 10-plus career in law enforcement, and it was nights, weekends, and holidays. That's what I worked mostly. And, she sacrificed moving and relocating and, just the majority of raising our children because I was working and the crazy hours. It was kind of a way for me to say, okay, well, we did what I wanted to do, and I guess here we go.
And I think that's going to lead into something in just a bit here. The idea of, and I think this is a great sort of lesson. We were talking about it beforehand and whatnot. People and the amount of times you're going to pivot in your life to different things. So a lot of people, when they walk in here, they know you played for the Badgers. And
Yep.
you weren't just some, there's no shame in this either. You weren't just some guy that was at the back of the bench either. You were out there on the field, all right? You were on national television. So update everybody. Where are you from? What path led you to the Wisconsin Badgers 20 years ago?
Well, I've been carrying around a football since I was 5. Told my parents I was playing football. Don't know where that drive came from. Probably because I was an abnormally large human being even at that age. And everyone said, oh, you're going to play football, you're going to play football. And I assumed that just kind of resonated. And but I remember carrying football, and that's all I wanted to do. So, was blessed with size, was blessed with strength, and was blessed with speed. And then a tremendous amount of work that goes into that. The idea of playing football was always my dream. That was the goal. That's what I wanted to do. I dedicated all my time and working out and just honing my craft. And my junior year started getting some recognition and from some of the universities, and all of a sudden the recruiting letters come in, and so ended up being one of the top linemen in the nation, and then the letters of full ride scholarship started coming in my junior year. I went to a football camp in Madison between my junior and senior year, the summer of, and it was more of an intense camp than I thought. Not knowing anything about the camp itself, but knew that it costed a lot of money, and my dad had to put in overtime for me to go down there, and started doing every rep at camp. So we have hundreds of kids there, and I'm going every rep, and it's not. It was a tough camp, and I'm going, man, like I'm getting my butt kicked here, like not by people, but the season hasn't started yet, and we're going full pack, and we are definitely. It wasn't a slouch camp at all, and I'm doing every rep, and it was at that point in time. I think it was like the second to the last day, and Coach Alvarez walks over and says, "Hey, let's go for a walk. You want to go for a walk?" I said, Yeah, I'm gonna go for a walk with you, 100%. And we actually took me up on the 50-yard line inside of the stadium on Camp Randall. He sat down, and everybody knew who Coach Alvarez was, and I call it the command presence that he had. He just had that confidence. Wasn't charismatic, but just that confidence that he had demanded your attention, and. We're overlooking the camp and kids going through drills, and he's like, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. He's like, I want you to play at Wisconsin, and I want to offer you a scholarship, and I need a verbal commitment. And my jaw hit the bleachers, and I was like, you don't even know what to say. It seems like it's one of those things where I can replay that memory in my mind, and I still get goosebumps about it. Like, it impacted my life that much. And so he, at that point in time, all right, well, that was kind of it, handshake. And I think I uttered something stupid, like, oh, I've always looked good in red, which I don't. But that was the phrase that I seemed to get out of my mouth. And, this is before cell phones. So we were staying at the Region across from the stadium, and where all the campers were. And I had to make a collect phone call to my father and say, hey, and he accepted. And I said, hey, Dad, and kind of told him. And my dad he's gotten softer in his old age, but he's just a tough, stoic kind of guy. Not much emotion coming out of that guy. And when I told him, I said, hey, they just offered me a full ride scholarship and a verbal commitment, and just a dead silence on the phone. Even then I was like, holy cow, finally, like, the hard work is paying off. Like, this is what I've been working for. This is what the family sacrifices for. Didn't say a whole lot. I think he said, "Well, what did you say?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yes, Dad." And then he's like, "Well, here, talk to your mother." And I told, but that was probably and doesn't show much emotion other than that. So, and that was basically, how the whole thing went. Without his sacrifice and working overtime and the foresight that if you want to go play football Division I, you need to start putting yourself out there, and to pay for that camp was it.
And I think, and something again for everybody that's out there. First off, remind them exactly what your position was, because you weren't one of the you weren't the quarterback or the wide receiver or Ron Dane that was going to get their photo in the magazine.
No.
But you were out there. You were one of you were part of the top of the depth chart.
Offensive line, and first year I was redshirted my first year, and lettered my second year, and then finally was going to get some playing time. And well, I guess there was other plans, and that's when disaster struck. So
yep, there was some injuries, knee injuries and whatnot, and I think that gives me an opportunity to bring this up. So you get through Wisconsin, all right, you're there, all right, you're part of the program, all of that sort of thing, and then college comes to an end.
Yep.
And this is something a lot of people experience multiple times in their life, transitioning, because your whole identity, as you said, was being a football player.
Absolutely.
All right, and I'm sure you did other things too and had fun with other things, but your identity, your goal was to be a football player.
Right.
And now that comes to an end after college. How do you handle that, and what was the next stage of life, and what led you to that?
Well, I didn't really have a next stage of life. That's the thing. Like, I went all in on football. Like, that's what I was going to do. That's what I identified as, and that was my purpose, I thought, on this planet. So when I suffered my last knee surgery, which was a complete devastation of my left knee, and then the realization when they said, "Hey, this is the one. This is the one where we can put you back together. But if you get hurt again, you won't walk again. We'll have to fuse your leg straight." I'm 21 years old at the time, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm playing. Because that mindset and that dream wasn't ready to die yet in my world, but we had the number one knee surgeon in the nation at the time, Dr. Graf, and he's like, "Hey, here's the deal, man. Like, as straight up as possible. He's like, I can fix you, but you're 21 years of age. You're going to have kids someday. I want you to be able to play with your kids, not be, handicapped the rest of your life." And I'm like, and then that realization set in. My initial plan was to be to follow the typical football player. I'm going to be a gym teacher and a football coach, because that seems to be the most comfortable, thing to do. The problem is at the school in Madison, they were turning down students with 3.8 GPAs to the School of Education. I was not close to the 3.8, so I was not going to make it into School of Education without some more going somewhere else. So, you kind of get slapped in the face a little bit. I did, and going like, what's my next step here? And I can remember the day that I thought law enforcement was going to be the way to go. And we were out with friends, probably 2:30 in the morning. We're all hanging out in the living room. Everyone else is sleeping on the couch, and I'm still up, and trying to sort through the mess of my life as to what I'm going to do. And the TV was turned on, and I'm flipping through the channels just mindlessly, and the television show Cops came on. And I'm sitting there watching the television show Cops, and I'm reflecting on my life and my current status and situation. And I'm watching these officers on the TV show, and I'm thinking to myself, this fills a lot of voids in my life. This is something that I could definitely, this profession can fill the camaraderie, the excitement, the pressure, the adrenaline, all the things that I've fed on, until that point in time. And that show made such an impact on me, not the episode. I can't tell you what was going on there, but that idea of this replaces football came to me in 2:30 in the morning, and it went on that Monday and changed my major from education to, they didn't have criminal justice then. It was sociology was the closest thing, and that's what I went and did.
Moving that on now, of course, you're in law enforcement. Tell us a little bit about that career, because, hey, that's kind of cool. When somebody walks into a party and says, hey, that person played Division I football, oh, I'm going to go talk to that person.
Right.
Oh, that person was also in law enforcement. Well, I got to talk to this person else.
Right, absolutely.
So you're no doubt the person that people want to come up and ask stories and whatnot, because you're in two, how do I put this, cool industries.
Right.
So you've been a football player. Those days are now in the past. You're now in law enforcement. Give us a little bit of that story.
I think, people will recognize me for for football. The biggest impact I made in life was law enforcement, hands down. Just a tough profession. It really is, but it's something that I loved. Again, it involves serving people, and you see a side of humanity that's not always great, not always glamorous, but again, you're doing it for the guys around you, for the people that are working with you. Very similar to football. I thrived in that environment, and I loved it. Like, to this day, again, like, the injury bug got me. I'd still be doing it, but ended up damaging my spinal cord at work. Couldn't play, couldn't do the game anymore. So that was my second blow of the body not holding up the way you wanted it to happen. So it wasn't anything. My injury didn't come from any huge case or anything. Just the wear and tear on the body, getting out of a squad car, wearing all the equipment, and ended up just rupturing a disc and damaging my spinal cord.
And throughout all of this, again, we keep talking about the transitions and what the identity is. You're a husband, you're a father, and now you're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Probably some things you weren't thinking about when you were 17 or 18, and you were, I'm going to go play for the Packers. I'm going to play for the Vikings. I'm going to get a jacket and be in Canton. We all have those dreams when we're 16, 17.
Absolutely.
And now having that be your identity, the family life and owning this coffee shop, which that in of itself, it might not be what you were dreaming when you were 15 or 16, but there's an awful lot of people that say that's a damn good life if that's all you had done.
Right. Well, it's life that comes at you. You don't have the game plan. You can plan out your route the best of your ability, but you're not in charge of it anyway. So life throws you curveballs, and it depends on how you are able to respond to those adversities. And so I mentioned a little bit too that I was a medical examiner in Eau Claire County. So my transition from law enforcement, again, I at the time I had children that weren't needing daycare; they were in school when I got when my law enforcement career ended. So it wasn't like I could sit at home and be a stay-at-home dad because my kids were already in school. I can only clean the house so many times. I can only mow the lawn. Like I can only. Again, you lose your purpose in life. Kind of lost my purpose again. Ended up running into the medical examiner in Dunn County. Him and his wife were there at the dinner, and me and my wife were. And he's like, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Nothing, man. I'm just trying to figure it out." He's like, "You want a job?" I said, 100%. He's like, the pay is not good. I said, "Perfect. Sign me up." He's like, "The hours are worse." I said, "Let's do it." And then started doing the medical examiner thing. And like I said, it's how you are able to transition and how you're able to deal with adversity, which all goes back to football, because life is full of adversities. And at no point in time can you lay down in the fetal position and just give up. When giving up is not an option, because I have a wife and kids, and I have things that I needed to accomplish, and I need to make sure that I'm feeling that my purpose is being met, because I've had football, law enforcement, both respectable things. But you got to be able to find a transition out of those things and find out what your passion is. And then the medical examiner kind of filled that void until we opened the coffee shop. So,
and I think one of the things that's interesting when you own a shop like this, you've got a number of young employees, right. High school kids, college kids, young adults. even your own kids, obviously, but what advice do you have for that generation? Whether it's directly, they ask you directly for the advice, or indirectly you're able to provide it. Because, as we said, you're no doubt everybody wants to know the opinion on the latest Badger game,
right.
but clearly you've also got the experience of having to transition what your identity is, something that a lot of people have to do. The days of somebody getting a job when they're 22 and then that's their job until they retire at 75, those are over, for better or worse.
Right.
So what advice do you have for that next generation coming up? Because the story you give is exciting, a little scary at times too, because you're not going to know the next step. But what advice do you have?
I think the advice that I have is you're not going to have all the answers all the time, and you're not supposed to. How you respond to the twists and turns of life is basically going to dictate it, how you're going to be. Nobody expects you to have all the answers, and you don't have all the answers. But you got to be able to sit down and think and be able to not have a pro and con list. Like, what, with the coffee shop particularly, what satisfaction was I going to get out of owning a coffee shop? Again, I've had the high pressure jobs. I had the high pressure, football playing career. I had to find things that gave me joy that wasn't on the level that I was used to. And it almost came back to like coaching, because again, through all my experiences in football and in law enforcement, you had leaders, you had mentors, you had coaches, you had lieutenants, you had sergeants, like all people that were guiding you along the way, and then you become that guy. So I literally took everything that I learned from law enforcement and football in order for me to lead people to run this business. Completely different pool of people, because with football it's all alpha males. Same with cops. I had to rewire my brain a little bit and try to figure out, okay, the way I was taught and the way I did things before is not going to work in a coffee shop setting. So let me just recompute and try to rewire my brain. And at the end of the day, very similar in all of the things I've done. You care more about the people around you than you do yourself. And that's what it comes down to. You are there. I tell people, like, oh, you have a great business. Like, how do you do it? It's pretty simple. I invest in my employees, and my employees run my business, and I'm present. That's it. And there's not a thing that they can ask me to do that I think is stupid or too small that I will disregard. It doesn't matter what it is, and I make it a priority. Because the minute I stop making it a priority, the minute I stop investing in my people, is the minute that they think that I don't care about them, and that's the minute that I lose good employees or they don't want to be a part of it anymore.
As we wind this down, and it's something I'll also ask Kelly down the road too. You've got this coffee shop now. It's become, River Prairie itself has become, it feels like this area has been around for 20 years. It's only been 6 or so years. Heck, it's only been really 2 years since it's looked the way that it does right now. How cool is it, though, to have a spot that, for some people, this is part of their daily or every other day, part of their commute. I'm going to go. This is where they meet people. This is part of their life.
Right.
Some of these people, you get to know some of your regulars, and I'm sure there's some people, I think I see that person a lot. I don't know their name,
Right.
Don't know who they are, but bless them, they keep coming in here.
Absolutely. And I say this phrase here a lot. We're not serving coffee. We're serving people, and that is the difference. Coffee is the catalyst, but we're serving people. You get to build relationships with people, and I have amazing relationships with people that I've met through our customers of mine, and they become family. And if I don't see them for a couple of weeks, because that regular occurrence that we've that connection that we have. I call, for example, we had Stu on the podcast, who is a former Vietnam helicopter pilot. If I don't hear from Stu in a week and a half, I'm calling Stu on his personal cell phone, like, hey, you good? Are you all right? I haven't seen you. We should do coffee here or meet up again. Like, it's the relationships and the people that make this thing go. It really is. And you can't fake that. You can fake customer service to a point, but when you genuinely care about people, that makes this business go, because it's the actual caring of people, because we're serving people, not just serving coffee. It's not, here's your coffee, there's the door. Here's your coffee, how are you today? It's that important, and that's what I thrive on now. Completely opposite of as to what I thrived on before.
Before we go, what's more stressful, a day at the coffee shop or a Sunday night, Monday watching film back in the day where you know the coach is going to be circling you on something?
Gosh, they're both tough. They really are. Here I don't get yelled at, but it's a different kind of pressure. It is. It's a different kind of stress. When you're the guy, you're the guy. You don't call somebody. They're calling you. You don't get to pass that buck. You're the guy, and you got to figure it out. And my girls and my employees know that I'm the first person to tell you that I don't know everything. But I just don't leave it at that. I will find an answer. I have connections. I have people. I can do things. But I am not the resident expert in this coffee shop, because I learn every day. And I think new ways to do things, and new ways to be a leader, and new ways to just better ways of doing business, that, always looking for something to make sure we're improving, I think is the most important thing. But yeah, coffee shop's probably a little more stressful. I know it seems very relaxed here in the coffee shop. There's some things happening behind that counter, and it's coming at you fast. So,
well, again, we always encourage everybody to check out all of these great podcasts that we have coming up with the roast, but also stop on by Cabin Coffee and say hi to Joe and Kelly when she's here as well. And as you can tell here in the last 25 or so minutes, Joe's got stories, and that's the joy of the coffee shop is just like what the bar was 20, 30 years ago for a lot of people. As we all get older, we're not out till 2 in the morning, but we're up at 7 in the morning. So,
absolutely,
come on out, share a conversation with people here, maybe make some friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you.